Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I hope this is actually live at this point. I was watching this show that I liked, and come to find out, my good friend Sal, who's here from his illustrious and legendary 2 Cents Toys. Sal is right here on my, right there.
Here I am.
Sal and I were just chatting up all these different shows and recommending them to each other over the last few months. And I found out that he was actually watching this show, I guess because he'd heard me mention it on one of my various, I don't know if it was a Patreon message or what. And then he just told me one day that he'd been keeping up with it after he'd heard me mention it. I've been watching a lot of shows that he's recommended over the last few months. I've even been buying physical media of some of the shows he's recommended. So it's been a trading of minds. Sorry, you were saying?
The one I recommended could not be further from what we're going to talk about.
Well, true, but it was no less entertaining. Variety is that's what I'm looking for, is good variety and good storytelling. I'm not looking for staying in some kind of like thematic lane. And as everybody knows, if I'm, with some exceptions, if I've been tricked before, but that's usually I'm tricked by the internet's recommendation, not a friend's recommendation. But if I watch it and a friend has recommended it and then I end up buying it on physical media, that means it was a good show. So especially if I try and find the last season on a UK Blu-ray, because
good luck.
But anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
I just said good luck.
All right, everybody. So thanks for joining us tonight. Sal and I, we've been watching this show in tandem separately, and there have been a few misadventures along the way that we had to deal with to keep up with this show. And we're going to talk about it tonight. We're not going to ruin the magic for you. I've strategically designed the clips and the multimedia and everything else where we can tell you what this show is about and everything that we've run through with this show, and then you can decide whether or not you want to watch it for yourself.
You can decide, but if you choose not to, just know that you're wrong.
Well, first of all, I feel like Yoda is about to say "feel like what" is what I'm thinking. I just got this sense that this background is not suitable for what we're talking about. So while we discuss this show, which is called Rascal Does Not Dream, I'm going to put a better background behind us. Just give me 1 second here. It's been a crazy few minutes. My mouth is still recovering from spicy ramen, and which I didn't realize was going to be that spicy. So, that's
the name was not misleading.
It was not misleading. No, it was not false advertising whatsoever.
It was not Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. It was not misleading.
There has been a lot of chatter on the internet, I've found, about the title of this show being the original series was Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. Now, let me be clear, everybody. The actual title of the series is Rascal Does Not Dream. For those of you who've seen it, you know what it's about. For those of you that don't, we're going to explain it. Now, Rascal Does Not Dream is kind of used in the same way the title Indiana Jones is used. It's Rascal Does Not Dream, and then there is a subheading for whatever the first or second or seventh story arc is. All right, so the first story arc was Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. Well, that does sound odd, I admit. To anybody who hasn't heard of what that is, that probably sounds pretty odd. But it's not really about bunny girls. I know that there are a few people who, including myself, Netflix kept recommending this show to me incessantly. Like Netflix was like, would you like to watch Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai? And I'm like, no, I would not like to get into a big fight with my girlfriend or wife now. Thank you very much. You know, I don't want her seeing something called Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai in the watch history. I was of the impression that that was going to be, you know,
a lot more salacious than it is.
yeah. There's our new background.
Especially compared to High School DxD, which was my recommendation.
Right.
Which has a very just a name. You're like, oh, that sounds non-threatening.
As a matter of fact, I'm gonna just add. Let's get Shoko in there. All right, so,
right in the heart, right in it.
Analog Toys, thank you for the super chat. He says, "Hi, Michael and Sal. I'm not here for anime. I'm here for my love of RetroBlasting. You're very kind, sir. And this is a nice way to kind of re-kickstart the live stream series for 2024 because Sal and I never had any intention, and we just went on hiatus with Ancient Mysteries. We're going to be coming back with that. And excuse me, Tony and Master Son and I will be restarting War Stories here real soon. It just went on a break, just to give us a break. So I think this right here is a great way to restart this whole thing. It's one of those deals where Sal and Tony both separately know that I'm not the most confident live streamer. Live streaming is not really my lane, so I have to find something I really, really enjoy talking about with really good friends. This definitely qualifies. All right, so Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai is the first story arc. They decided to make that the title for the anime adaptation for the first several story arcs. This series started... I have props. This series started as what's known in Japan as a light novel series. A lot of times in anime, I have learned in my crash course of trying to get familiar with anime, they either start, much like here in the United States, where most movies are either based on a book or some sort of, readaptation.
Comic or a TV series or...
Yes. 100%.
In a lot of cases, the third or fourth version of the same movie.
Right. Last call with Troy Pacelli. Thank you so much for the super chat. Just cuz probably have to catch the rewatch later, but hanging out as long as I can. Thank you, sir. Now that my mouth is no longer burning after the first few minutes, I think we're going to make it. So this series by Hajime Kamoshida started as a light novel series. Usually what happens is it either starts as a light novel series or a manga, which, as Sal will tell you, that's Japanese comics. Now,
basically,
yeah. And usually when it starts as a light novel and goes to anime, they immediately start also making a manga because there are people who prefer their storytelling in comic book or comic art form. It also works vice versa. Some animes start life as manga, then they get the anime adaptation, and then they start writing light novels after that. So Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai now has manga, which is far behind the light novel series, but it's manga. So now Netflix was saying, watch it. And I'm like, not because I was trying to avoid, like romance and whatever, which I also wrongly assumed. You cannot predict what this show is until you start watching it. And I promise I'm not going to keep vague booking this, but finally I relented because I just got sick of Netflix throwing it at me. And I started watching this show. And I couldn't have been more wrong. And a lot of that, Netter, good to see you. I couldn't have been more wrong about what this show is. And again, the title is weird and doesn't help its cause. In other words, this is one of those ones where you have to literally tell somebody, you must unlearn what you've learned about anime when you see that title. Like, it really isn't about that at all. It is not some sort of lolicon, bunny girl, weird kind of thing. It's just, So my question to you, Sal, to kick this off is, had you heard of this show before I started watching it?
I wouldn't say I was aware of it. It was one of those that I had seen it in passing
Mm-hmm.
enough where like I kind of recognized the character,
Right.
but it was one of those like when I heard that you were watching it, I was like, really? Like that seems like a kind of a okay, but
Right.
and don't get it twisted. Like it's mostly because you were just getting started down your kind of anime manga journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I figured people would be telling you to watch Demon Slayer and watch all these shonen that are super popular and all that. And I was like, oh,
Right.
Bunny Girl Senpai, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I was like, you know what? We were talking, and I was like, I'd given it a chance. For those that don't know, Michael is very much a sub person. I'm very much a dub person.
Right.
Um, Although when I watch my dubs, I also watch them with subtitles on because I can't hear without my subtitles because I like
Right.
to eat when I watch TV. Um, I'm still working on it, you know. But the so it was subtitled, so I'd watched like an episode. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
but we were talking about it. You're like, oh no, it's really good, and we were kind of going back forth exchange, and I'd watched something else,
Mm-hmm.
and I cannot remember what it was. It wasn't Uzukai Wants to Hang Out. It was the other one.
Let's see, there was Zazaki-chan Wants to Hang Out.
Yeah.
There was Rascal Does Not Dream, and there
Mhm.
was oh gosh.
It's
We
the two.
watched, what's that?
It's the 2 season one. It just shits the bed.
Oh, Haganai.
Kaganai,
Yeah.
yeah.
What a travesty. What a travesty. Like,
So I was watching that, and
Mhm.
you're like, listen, I know you don't like subs, but this
Mhm.
one's pretty good, and I was,
Right.
and you've never steered me wrong before, so like I'll give it another shot.
Mhm.
And then 10 hours later, I was like, you got any more? Because there's nothing left.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. It was a 12-episode series based on this light novel series. I was so desperate for more content, I ran out to Crunchyroll and I bought all the light novels that have been translated so far, because in this rare case, they actually go very far past where the anime has been, because the anime started in 2018
Mhm.
and then kind of halted after 2019 and then just came back late last year and only on our shores last Sunday. So it's been this kind of weird path. All right, so everybody's like, would you tell us what the show is about? All right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to finally stop dancing around it. This show is about, this won't shock you, it's set around some kids in high school in a coastal city. The Japanese love their they love their high school setting, and it is about this guy named Sakta, who he is the type of kid that other Japanese kids avoid, because he doesn't conform to the social norms. He doesn't care about any of that kind of stuff. He's not disruptive, but he just doesn't go with what they call the atmosphere, what we would call reading the room. He doesn't like,
or as they call it now, the vibe.
the vibe. He doesn't play the game. He's very direct. He's very blunt. He's very like dry. He doesn't really do the whole grip and grin kind of thing. Like, he has two good friends and that's all he needs. He's not trying to win any social awards or anything like that. And he's there at that high school because something bad happened to his kid's sister where they used to live. And this show picks up after his father has already moved him and his sister away, because the trauma was so bad for his sister getting bullied at another school that she had like a dissociative mental breakdown. And so now she doesn't even have any memory of that, and she's an agoraphobe who lives in the apartment and never leaves. Meanwhile, his father is still living where they used to live, because what happened to what happened to Sakta's sister, their daughter, broke the mom mentally. And so now the father is taking care of the mother somewhere else, and Sakta is having to go to a new school because he got caught up in what happened at that school with his sister. So
Which, just to take that for a
yeah.
moment, it's like, wow, it's like, okay, so his mom is in a mental hospital.
Hmm.
The dad has abandoned the children,
Right.
basically, to care for the mother.
Hmm.
His sister is now, like, not a split personality, but she's just become a new version of herself where she's kind of
Right.
just removed one.
Hmm.
So now he has to do and go to a new school
Right.
and take care, and he just, okay,
Yeah. And he's
like,
going to this new school, just, like he didn't used to be the way he is, but
mhm,
um everything he's been through and everything that's happened to him, he's entered this new school, just kind of like he's a different person than what he was before we meet him. And the reason he chose this school was because when he was at his lowest point, wondering what was going to happen to his sister in all this crisis, he was on the beach, and this girl, high school girl that was about a year or two older than him, walked up to him on the beach and wondered why he was so depressed.
mhm,
And you see this in a flashback. And she basically helps him through, gives him advice and listens to what he's going through and kind of helps him through this crisis. And he gets to know her through these visits to the beach that we find out in these sporadic flashbacks.
mhm,
And so he realizes that her uniform is for Minagahara High School, and so he applied there. But when he got there, that girl was nowhere to be found. He could not
yep,
find this girl named Shoko. And
mhm,
so he's been going for about a year or something like that, and he's settled in. He's got his two friends, and a lot of people at the school don't like him because there's a rumor going around that at his previous school, he got into this massive fight and hospitalized a bunch of kids, like, which is
there
totally
there are worse rumors to have.
right,
Like,
right. And everybody who is close to him, the few people that are, I should say, not everybody, the few people that are close to him are shocked that he's not fighting back against that rumor. And he's like, look, you can't fight back against that kind of thing. Like, you might as well just ignore it. Just,
mhm.
let it roll. Shockwave, why am I clicking on that? I need to be clicking on this. Shockwave 75, thank you for the super chat. He says, if you guys heard, apparently Disney Plus is getting the Macross saga.
Oh, no, I was having a good time.
I didn't know that either. That's crazy. So no problem, sir. It's okay to be late. I was late to this one because of
Mm,
hot ramen. So now we pick up. The story begins with a brief little look at that flashback, and then
mhm,
a really awesome intro song, and
mhm,
then we get into the main story. And this is a public library. It's a public library. Sakta's gone to what I learned from the light novel, because I read the light novel. There's a little bit of added detail. He's there to get it's either a manga or something. It's a book that Kaide, his sister, wanted to read to keep up with a series. And so he's there to try and find a book for her.
mhm,
And while he's there, he happens to see in this public library, this is not the school library, this is the city library. And there's all the people at the the public internet computers and
mhm.
people reading at the reading desks and stuff. And he happens to see a girl that's a year ahead of him in school who was a famous child actress and model.
Mhm.
Everybody knows her, Mai Sakurajima. She's often not at school because she is on a job or doing whatever,
Right.
but she's taken a break. She apparently has gone on hiatus to catch up on her studying and stuff because she doesn't want to fall behind. And he sees her walking around the library in a bunny girl costume, like what you would visualize from the Playboy Club in the 60s. Like, she's walking around in a full-on bunny
Mhm.
girl costume, trying to get people's attention in the library, sitting on the computer desks, watching people read, getting down in their
Yep.
faces, trying to, and
She
no,
placing her awesome boobage in front of their faces.
right, and nobody can see her. Nobody can see her.
Mhm.
Now, I'm glad that Sal brought that up. This show is not it's not a fan service show.
No.
This show is not a but it has those little moments that make it it has a realistic amount of stuff like that, but it's not overt with it. It's very restrained.
It also has a more wholesome fan service to it.
Right.
Like it has a finally kind of thing, not like I hope I see her boobies. Like
that's what I could pick up on it immediately was the show is very, it has a deliberate tone. It's kind of zen. Like it's like this becomes a diet Twilight Zone kind of show where people start to have these problems. And Melinda actually, when I got her to watch the show, she said, "My God, is this city, is this town, this coastal town, is it on the Hellmouth from Buffy? Because everybody keeps having all these problems that are very weird phenomena." So he is able to see her. And I'm just going to play you the little clip because then she realizes he can see her.
驚いた。君にはまだ私が見えてるんだ。
And the moment he says that, like, yeah, I can see you. She's like, all right, well, forget you saw me. Don't get to know me. You know, stay away from me. You know, all that kind of stuff. Not like he's not being a creep. He's literally standing there just trying to get a book, and he can see her because what's happened is she has started to figure out the hard way that more and more people in the town cannot see her. She is completely disappearing from their view. Waiters, you know, shopkeepers. Now, you know, right now it's almost like that episode of The Next Generation where Beverly Crusher is on the Enterprise and people keep disappearing, except now do it in reverse, which is kind of what was happening on the show. You find out in that episode that she was actually disappearing from everybody else, and her world kept shrinking. And so right now, Mai's world has shrunk down to only the high school kids can see her, and however long that's going to last, she doesn't know. So Sakta starts trying to figure out why he can still see her and what he might be able to do to help her. And the reason that he can see her is because he doesn't play the game with the social order. He's kind of out there, which I guess you and I, Sal, can relate to a little bit.
a little too well. A little too well.
KBA here says, real quick, hold your thought. KBA says, I like to think of it as quantum mystery, that's fair. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Pretty accurate. Yeah, it's his I shouldn't say inability, because he could choose to care, but he doesn't.
Right.
It's, I don't know. It lands close to the heart.
Right.
So
hey, Chronically, thank you. We will have a great show. Good to see you.
Indeed.
Yeah. He's not an uncaring person. He just won't. He won't go with a social order that can be negligent or can be mean-spirited or can be whatever. He's just not going to play these games.
Yeah.
He's outside the status quo. So Sakta becomes this kind of, in many ways, without staking vampires, he's kind of like Buffy in that way, where he's got not special powers. He just has this thing that keeps him apart from everybody else that allows him to notice what's going on while everyone else is actually wrapped up in it, even when they don't know it. So like everybody else is starting to forget who Mai Sakurajima is, that they don't even see her anymore, but they don't realize that somebody's missing. You know,
it's for the show. Well, I'll let the metaphorical cat out of the bag, which is kind of funny because the Schrodinger's cat. We'll get into that.
Yep.
But they call it adolescent syndrome or puberty syndrome, depending.
And I much prefer adolescent syndrome, but yes.
Yeah. That's the title they give it, which really doesn't explain it anymore by title. But it's out of sight, out of mind to an extreme for her. So it's like she's no longer relevant. She doesn't exist to these people, and that's hence the bloody suit. She's doing it to try and gauge reaction, like who can see me, who can't. But I think of it like I don't know, pick a 15-minute celebrity at random, just anyone, like the Gail Lewis lady from Walmart.
Yes.
I'm sure she's alive, but she doesn't exist to anybody now because her 15 minutes is up. So it's kind of like she's a child actor. She's not relevant anymore because she's taken a hiatus, so she's not relevant in Hollywood. And Biscuit Minute passes by, and you don't exist anymore.
And because of the social order in these Japanese high schools, because she can't get close to people because she's always working, she can't form a social network. When she is at school, she doesn't have any friends. She sits there. They don't talk to her, even though she's famous. Right. It's a reverse thing. Nobody tries to ingratiate themselves, apparently, to a person who can't accept invites and can't go do stuff. So she ends up being alone at school, surrounded by people, and also on hiatus from her job where she was in the public eye all the time. So it's this double whammy, and they're calling it adolescent syndrome, which is this sort of mythologized legend. It's like an urban legend that they have to deal with. Now, Sakta is not liked at the high school, like we said, and he has two friends. He has his friend Futaba, who is this
fucking waifu.
We all love Melinda's favorite character as well. We all love Futaba. She is his friend who is the only member of the science club, and she keeps to herself in the science club just to keep the science club going, and also because she just doesn't want to be around many people.
And routinely uses the beakers and flasks to make coffee.
Right. And in the light novel, it's made very clear that Sakta, when she offers him coffee and stuff, he kind of freaks out because she'll just mix something up and hand it to him, and he'll say things like, in the establishing scene in the novels, he's like, "Wait a minute, you just grabbed all this stuff out of the cupboard. Like, are you sure what you just stirred up is actually coffee?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's probably fine." He's like, "You weren't paying attention," like she's like, "Oh, whatever," and because it could be arsenic or some sort of chemical or something. But
only one way to find out.
Only one way to find out, right? So he always goes to her for help to try and figure some of this stuff out. She's almost like Q in that regard. She's kind of like his, what's that?
She's like Q, and Whoopi Goldberg's character's name is escaping me, but it's like two. It's like the two of them just rolled up into one.
Guinan, yeah.
Guinan, that's right. Guinan.
Yeah. Their other friend, they're all three friends together, is Kunimi. Kunimi is this really nice guy, but he's also really popular on the basketball team. So he's a jock, but he's not like a bullying, abusive jock. He's
he's also, I would say, of all the characters, he's also the one that gets the least amount of time.
Right.
He's supposed to be like Sakta's like best friend, and he's rarely around.
Right. So. And he's probably rarely around because while he is always loyal to his two friends, like very loyal, he also fits in with everybody else. Like Futaba doesn't really fit in with everybody else either. She's her own person.
And that's why he's never affected by the adolescent syndrome.
Right.
Like as of yet, nothing's happened to him.
Exactly. He hasn't gone through any trauma or stressors socially of any kind. So he's now, because Sakta is hated, there's a lot of people that don't want him to be friends with Kunimi. They don't want Kunimi being friends with him, including Kunimi's girlfriend, Kamisato. And this will just give you a taste of Sakta's personality.
クラスで浮いてるあずさ川なんかと一緒にいるとユーマの株が下がるから。
そんなにイライラして生理か？
死ねバカ！絶対死ね！もうありえない最低。
He does not care.
He does not care. Like what? Like, what are you doing, lady? Just like leave me alone.
The show should be called Rascal Does Not Care. Is what it should be called.
Rascal Does Not Care, and it becomes this kind of I know I just called it like this really zen, chill show, but it's not, because there are these emotional high points, but it starts from a place of reflective stoicism. It's not a show that starts with mania and a lot of zany stuff. There's no moments in this show like in certain animes where somebody just finally starts screaming with like a line background behind them and they're like, there's nothing like that going on in the show.
And they avoid the use of noodle arm.
Yes. Yeah, no noodle arms, none of that. So that just to set you up, because we don't want to give away every single mystery that's going on in the show because it's so good. You don't want to give away all the arcs,
right?
But that's the first mystery: is why is Mai now becoming invisible to everybody, and how can Sakta stop that from? How can he stop everybody from forgetting about her and her falling into this kind of purgatory where she will never get out of it again,
Right.
And KBA here says, he says, I wonder if the fact that all adolescent syndrome sufferers are young women is derived from the theories about poltergeists. Well, one would think at first. However, we have some information to impart here in a little bit that it's not just women that fall in for this. And Chronically says, Rascal does not get any friends. He does. Yeah, he starts getting a lot of friends. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets friends, one of them with a particularly large butt, according to him.
Right.
Which is Melinda, obviously it's not true if you look at the character model, but it's such a funny running gag. That,
and Melinda hates Tomo. I like Tomo. I like
Tomo.
Yeah, I think Tomo's funny. But to give you a rundown of the characters real quick to kind of prime you for all this. So I put this together. So this is the lay of the land here, and I got this off of my Japanese Blu-ray box, the box set. These are the sides of the box, and I just photoshopped them all together. So you've got Sakta, like we've mentioned. You've got Mai, who's the famous actress and model, who's also his girlfriend. You got Nodoka, who's Mai's half sister. There's Futaba in the middle. Everybody's favorite character if they have a brain. She's Sakta's best friend. You've got Kaide, who's his kid sister, who can't remember what happened to her before they moved to this town. You've got Tomo, who is his younger classmate. And then you've got Shoko, the girl we talked about, who he met on the beach before he chose to come to this high school, who he still hasn't been able to locate. She is the X factor. She is one of the mysteries in the show. This is the main cast, and at least this is the main cast that we've seen so far. I've been told that now that they're moving on into the college story arc, we may be introduced to a bunch of new characters, obviously with Mai and Sakta still being at the center of it. But I wanted to bring that up, and that's what I wanted to talk about next after looking at that cast. Sal, can you explain to the audience better than I can what a typical anime harem show is?
So I'm glad you said that, because I was about to bring that up. Because you look at that and you're like, oh, it's a harem. It's one dude, bunch of women. So a normal harem, it's one dude who either A, is just horn dog supreme, and just wanting to get all the boobs in his face that he can, and there's all these women just throwing themselves at him, or whatever. Like Tenchi Muyo is like it. I think it's considered like the chief harem just because it was the first big one in America. Right. But it's usually something like that, or it's a dude who has all these women coming after him and he's oblivious to it. Except it's a trope. It's a whole genre in of itself.
Right.
And a lot of times it's kind of like just they go through the motions. They have the smart girl, they have the ditzy girl, they have the super hot girl, they have the one that obviously loves him, they have the one that's obviously the best parent. And they all have this, like, they fall into slots. This show, thankfully, doesn't do that.
No.
It just has a lot of female leads in it.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, this show is refreshingly, this is the show that Ryan Johnson should have watched to understand what subversion actually means. In other words, this show is playing in a space where you have all these anime shows that are called harem shows, where you have one guy, all these girls are around him, and eventually they all just fall in love with him separately, and there's no real reason for it. This is not that show. This show, he's in love with Mai's in love with him. That is established very quickly. There will be some, occasionally, but very rarely, is there somebody who's crushing on him, but it's never consistent. Like most of these characters that we just showed you, that's never an issue. Like that's never a thing.
They're one of them, her whole story is built around it, but we'll get into that.
Right.
And there's one that they do intentionally early on to break that trope, thankfully, with Kaide.
Yes.
So
right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because this show undercuts immediately all of these anime cliches and establishes we're not about any of that in this show. So like, for example, one of the more troubling tropes in some anime is that you have like sisters that are just way too attracted to their brothers.
Yep.
Yeah. In this particular show, they played early on with that in one scene in like 3 lines, and it was his sister. His sister's a lot younger than him, and she's cold in the morning, and Sakta wakes up, and his sister's always in a full hoodie panda pajama
like onesie. Yeah,
it's a onesie. She's never like, running around in anything scanty. She's always in this literal hooded panda themed pajama suit, but she gets cold in the morning, and so Sakta wakes up and he's like, why have I not have enough room in bed? And then he's like, why is she in my bed again? Like, and she's always freezing, so she's always cold. And so then he has this little moment where they establish why she's doing that, why he wants her to stop, and then they play with the trope and then break it at the same time. So here is this little moment between him and Kaide.
楓もいい年頃なんだから、僕のベッドに潜り込むのはそろそろ卒業しろよ。
朝から興奮してしまうんですね。
実の妹に誰が興奮するか。
It's like, oh, thank God. Like,
right.
It
was when I saw that line of dialogue, I was like, oh, thank God they put that to bed, fun. And 2, it was a line of dialogue to be like, yeah, you guys are fucking weird.
Yeah. Like, yeah, 100%. And they also quickly establish that, like we just talked about, you're not going to have every person in this show falling in love with this guy. And he doesn't want that either. That's the other thing. He's not some lech. He actually is just trying to solve these mysteries of the week, whatever it is. Futaba, for example, she's crushing on their mutual friend Kunimi. She has this long-standing, unrequited want to be with him. And Sakta is like this guy that she's real brutal with him at times, because he's real sarcastic, he's real dry, and that's one of this show's strengths, is the banter. There's this kind of like, they're always needling each other in this very like harsh, but meaning all the characters, they're always very harsh, but they're always looking out for each other's best interests at the same time. So like in this particular bit, which is from a later sequence, this is Sakta talking about a problem with Futaba in the lab.
小学生の舞さんを夢に見たのって何の暗示だと思う？
豚箱に入れられる前兆だと思う。
安心してくれ。断然今の舞さんの方がいい。
Oh God, that line.
That's the tone. That's the tone of the show, and you really start to fall into this pattern where it's refreshing. The show is not playing up anime cliches; it's actually subverting them, and then moving on with its own identity as a narrative. And I love that. I just think that's amazing. So that being said, we are in we are in a series of arcs, and
Mhm.
the first arc is them trying to resolve what's going on with Mai, but that doesn't mean that Mai isn't going to be directly involved in other things that
Mhm.
go on later. She becomes like this main character, and the strength of this show really revolves around Mai and Sakta's interpersonal dynamics. Sal, how would you describe that? I mean, it's hilarious, but it's also very unique. I don't see it a lot.
There's almost no real perfect way to describe it. I'd hate to be like, it's a show about nothing. I'd hate to say that, but it's one of those where it's just, I guess slice of life is the best way to describe it. But it's their dynamic becomes so integral to the show. I mean, they're a couple, so that's kind of dumb to say out loud, I guess, or at least for me. But it's their whole. You could remove the adolescent syndrome from the show and just make it about the two of them, and it would still be good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I wouldn't call it corporal punishment between Mai and Sakta, but she does like to step on his feet and all that, like kind of twist the thumb screws, so to speak, only with the feet.
Right.
Some of the stuff they say. There's a scene later in the show with Kaede and the two of them, and it's so we should mention. I think we mentioned it. He had his own puberty or adolescent syndrome,
right?
Pre-show, where he has this giant scar on his chest.
It looks like he's been mauled by a bear
right
on his chest. Yeah.
And his gets resolved in the first movie that we'll talk about, which just haymaker gut punch after, oh god, that movie. But it's that particular scene.
I know what scene you're talking about.
I know.
I have it here in a clip.
I want to describe it to people, but it's hard to describe it without. But like, so he takes off his shirt a lot, and Mai, sees the scars and all that, and he so desperately wants to be touched by his girlfriend, like most boys, and men that are also married that want to be touched by their wives. But it's a thing, and we'll just play the clip.
Okay, we'll go to clip. So here's the clip.
お兄ちゃん帰ったの？楓ちゃん、違うからね。
and that's again, that's part of that constant reminder from the writers that this is not this is not going to be like your standard anime show with one guy and a lot of women. Like there's another running gag where when some of these female characters end up having their own adolescent syndrome crises or whatever, some of them, not all of them, but some of them end up needing Sakta's direct help because he's their friend. And so they always end up coming over to the apartment for whatever reason, his place with Kaede. And so she's always like, because she's afraid of people at first that she doesn't know because of her trauma. And she keeps saying things like, why do you keep bringing different women over to the house? Like, are you becoming a delinquent? Are you becoming this awful person? And so like, for example, there's one story arc where Mai and her half sister end up in a situation where they find themselves switched. In other words, Mai now looks like her half sister, and her half sister looks like Mai, and they don't know how to get reversed. And so Mai is insistent, even though she looks like a different person, that she's going to go stay with Sakta while she gives the apartment over to her half sister. And this is like, let's see, there was Mai at first who came over to the apartment. Then you had Futaba come to the apartment. Now you've got Nodoka, but it's really Mai, right? And so you get this moment. Sorry, what were you saying?
And there was I can't. What was his Groundhog Day before or after this one?
with Tomo was the second story arc. So that
so Tomo was
right
showing up.
Did she actually go to his apartment in the show?
No,
I can't remember.
I'm wrong. Never mind.
No, because see, that's the thing. She does in the light novels, which stood out to me. But in the show, I'm trying to remember, did they ever actually animate her in his apartment in the show? Because I don't know if Kaide ever met her. Because remember later on in the anime, she goes to his the restaurant where he works, and she's standing out in the atrium or whatever, and Tomo's like, "Hey, is that a customer?" And he's like, that's my little sister. And she's like, "You've got a little sister?" You know, but yeah, like even in the light novel, when she does go to his apartment during that story arc, I don't know if she meets Kaide. I think she and Kaide miss each other. But I could be wrong. I can't remember. I just remember taking note of that. So so like here's like a little bit where Kaide is giving her brother crap for all these strange women coming over to the house.
お兄ちゃんがチゴロになっちゃいました。
どういう解析をしたそれ。彼女は舞さんの妹だ。しばらくうちで預かることになったから。
So he's constantly having to deal with that.
Right. And not just from her, it's like there's kind of, you really should stop cheating on your girlfriend like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Yeah.
And he's constantly caught in these situations, and it's just it's always like the one we showed you all with Kaide opening the door. It's always like not what it looks like, but he's constantly stuck.
Yep.
And it's just he just resigns to it. He's like, okay,
right. I don't know what I'm going to do.
As a
matter of fact, the only character in this show that he did have feelings for at one time was the girl he couldn't find, which was Shoko. Mm-hmm. But he never found her after that awful summer or whatever it was where he couldn't get his life together because he was moving to this other place. He never found her after those few days on the beach, whatever it was. So when Shoko ends up in a huge twist, she comes back into his life as a middle schooler. Mm-hmm. Like he and Mai are walking home from school in the rain, and they see a little girl trying to rescue a kitten that's been abandoned in a box in the park. And she looks up at him, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is the girl that was older than me 2 years ago or whatever it was. Her name is Shoko, and I know this girl anywhere, but why is she a middle school kid now?" Mm-hmm. It causes all these other ripple effects to happen in his life where Mai's like, "Well, no, I'm not going to be jealous of a middle schooler. What are you, crazy?" Right. But she's like, but then when you get to the first movie, which is all about Shoko's situation, mm-hmm. suddenly older Shoko is reappearing in their reality.
Right.
But she's never crossing paths with young mm-hmm. Shoko. So now that's the new mystery. And I know that everybody who's watching or listening to this is probably thinking, "My God, this sounds insane." By the way, I have to point out this hilarious comment from Jeremy Kerr. He says, where is it? He says, "I wish my wife would touch me like that." But it's such a, I found the show to be very unique. And at first I thought to myself, well, I must be naive because mm-hmm. I'm a newbie when it comes to anime. I'm sure there are a lot of shows like this, but as Sal will tell you, I've been devouring shows trying to like get a taste for everything at the buffet. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen any. I mean, some people tried to claim on the internet that there were other shows that were like this, like mm-hmm. What was the one? I'm losing the title right now. It's the one with the girl who finds out it's famous. It's the one where the high school girl, all she wants to do is like have these weird adventures, and she starts a club where they're going to find paranormal phenomena. So, Haruhi. Mm-hmm. It's the whatever of Haruhi. And mm-hmm. yet major anime YouTubers have said, Yeah, those recommendations are kind of off base because they're only on the surface level. But once you actually watch 2 episodes, shows that they're saying are like this couldn't be farther apart from it. Like they're not similar at all.
A viewer conveniently named Slice of Anime actually has the title there, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya.
Yes, the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Yeah. Thank you, Slice of Anime. Yeah, that's the one that people were saying was like this, and I watched it. I didn't think it was a bad show. I watched the whole thing based on that recommendation, but it wasn't like this show. I felt like people saying that did a disservice to both shows. I felt like both shows deserve their own identity. And there were other shows that were compared to this show, but there are a number of YouTubers who are the bigger anime YouTubers that are in the know, and they're like, yeah, on the surface level, if you're not really plugging into the show, you could say this X, Y, and Z. These are similar, because it's high school kids experiencing paranormal phenomena. But really, these shows couldn't be more different.
Right.
One of the other things that I loved about this show is that Sakta is not a trembling anime rom-com mess of a guy. Like, he's not somebody that's like, lacking in confidence. He's not somebody that's always blushing and like, shivering and, freaking out and yelling and, oh my God, the girl's holding my hand. Like, he's not that guy.
Not once does the show have someone shooting blood out of their nose.
Not once does that happen. Yeah, it's a far more confident show. There are moments of comedy, plenty of them, but they're all very situational. So as an example of Sakta's kind of cool under fire attitude and devil may care kind of thing, Sakta's not like some cliche badass guy. I don't mean it like that, but he just is comfortable in his own skin. He doesn't even have a smartphone. Like, he's like, I threw my smartphone away because Kaide was going through a crisis that involved kids on social media. And when she heard cell phones ringing, it would freak her out. So he got rid of his smartphone. Well, in the story arc we talked about a second ago, where Mai's half sister finds herself in her older sister's body and they're trying to work it out, Sakta has to walk her to school every day because she has to pretend to be Mai. She has to go to the classes and all that stuff. When they're coming back from school and they stop at the beach because she wants to cool her feet in the water, and this little moment happens.
何橋ばかり見てんの？
すげえいい。
お姉ちゃんの体をエロい目で見んな。
挟まれたい。言っておくが顔だからな。
Like, in any other anime that you would know, like, that was in any other anime I've seen, and I've seen a number of them, the guy would be delivering that line with like 2 clenched fists, and he'd be yelling, and he'd be like, I want them in my face, and all this kind of stuff.
There'd be a bunch of motion lines behind him and all that.
Yeah, like this one, it's just more like, because Sakta, half the time he's doing that while he's honest about his attraction to Mai, both physically and emotionally. So he's not lying. He also just likes putting people on the back foot. He just likes messing with them. It like, here's a classic example of him. After the story arc with Tomo Koga, the girl who's younger than him, she starts working at a part-time job at the same restaurant that he works at. And so they work together regularly outside of school at this restaurant. And this is just an example.
子がまた太った？
太ってないし、またって何？
店長に言って制服のサイズを上げてもらえよ。
それは絶対嫌。
Like, he's like, hey Tomo, you've got like a nice butt, like it's shaped like a peach. And the thing is, he's not doing it to be creepy. He's literally doing it just to mess with her, just to make, because he knows that will throw her off. And then she I know I'm not selling it well, but it's not the same as most anime.
Right. And it becomes a running gag because he does it to her all the time. And I can relate. Roasting is one of my love languages. So I needle and I poke fun at my friends, as you are well aware, and Ryan is aware. I make fun of my friends. And so it's nice to see it translated into an anime where he just
Right.
like, hey, your butt's getting big. And
Right.
no, it's not. So
Prime versus Unicron. Michael, will you watch Aura Battler Dunbine? I mean, I'll give anything a shot. Sure. I'm not opposed to that. Robo P says, yeah, the show it pretends to be isn't the show you think it is. Yeah, it actually does subvert. Yeah, and Wilson, this isn't a parody. This show is not a parody at all. This show is a straight up like I said, Diet Twilight Zone. It is not a parody of other genres. What it's trying to do is head off the viewer at the pass. It's trying to establish very quickly, we're not this kind of show. We're not this kind of show. If you want those shows, go somewhere else, you know? And then Slice of Anime says, there's an anime called The Hentai Prince and the Stony Cat that does have a very similar story concept, but it's much more blood coming out of the nose cliches.
Which can be good depending. Because I mentioned High School DxD earlier, and that's one of my favorites.
Yep.
Because the show knows exactly what it is, and it leans into it, and it becomes so over the top, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's another show called Dime a Dollar, Prince versus the Penguin Empire. Which is, I think it's like 10 episodes or something like that. It's equally as absurd. There's a lot of nudity and all that in it, but it's done for comedy in such a way that like I would laugh. I'd cry from laughing.
Right.
Like there's a scene where these penguin type dudes, they strip down this character and they start going over her measurements. The Penguin Emperor's like, "Shut up! Why are you doing this? This isn't important." They're like, "And her nipples are pink." He goes, "Oh, that's good to know." And then it just. The way that it cuts and lands, it's hilarious. So there are times where there's like the nosebleed cliche shows can be funny, but a lot of them are too afraid to go that extra step to be funny.
Yes.
And then there are some that go way too far, and you're like, this is essentially hentai.
Right.
It's not funny. This is uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
It's like you've really put me at arm's length on certain shows where I can't really plug in. Slice of Anime actually brings up one that I bought on Blu-ray because I was recommended after I watched this show, but not all the seasons were on Crunchyroll. And it's called My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, also called Origairu. I've watched the whole series, Slice of Anime. I have it on both volumes on Blu-ray. I will say that it is a very watchable show. You're right. It plays everything pretty straight. Nothing really like supernatural happens as in with this show. The one thing I will say about that show is while the characters are grounded, the characters in that show have a lot of baggage, I guess you would say, like baggage that prevents them from really being normally interpersonal with each other. They have a lot of social awkwardness and standoffishness that goes on. And so when you get to the end of that show, some of these people in that show are so, how do I put this? They're so unintentionally detached from their emotions because of their lives that even though some of them confess to one another and relationships are starting to move forward, I found myself at the end of that show going, well, it was very watchable. I'm having a hard time remembering everything that happened in it, though. And I'm going to have to go back possibly at some point, watch it again, because I didn't hate it, but it doesn't have the witty banter all the time that this show has. It doesn't have the character chemistry, I guess is what I would say. I saw character chemistry in that show that reflected some other shows that I've seen, like Pet Girl of Sakura-su, which is actually written by the guy that wrote Rascal, Hajime Kamoshida. Right. A lot of the coldness in that show Origairu was reflective of another Hajime Kamoshida short series called Just Because, which I've also watched because I've now watched anything that Hajime Kamoshida wrote himself that got turned into an anime. I've watched it because of this show. So it's Origairu is a good show. Wasn't the most memorable show I've seen though, but you're right. It doesn't have any of those cringy tropes in it. It's right. Not like that. Yeah. Okay. So, Wilson says,
Yeah, that's
Retro-
RetroBlasting channel one. It just made me think of Tim Tenzan. I mean, Chan no Guru.
And Slice Anime says, I agree completely. I definitely related to the characters and could empathize with Rascal more than I could Origairu. Yeah. Which makes the show interesting in its own weird way, but it also keeps you at an arm's length. Anyway, sorry, Sal, what were you saying?
No, that was all I had to say, really.
Okay.
But we are rapidly approaching the movies now, and I want to tell people, if nothing else, if they just watch the first 3 episodes. If you don't watch anything else in the series, the first 3 episodes, they're 20 minutes apiece, is enough to be a series on its own. Like it has a emotional punches in the first 3 episodes. You're like, oh wow, that was really good. Oh, there's like 10 more episodes to watch. But these arcs are like 3 to 4 episodes apiece, generally speaking. But that first arc in this first movie, Rascal Does Not Dream of Dreaming Girl.
Yeah.
I think when I was watching it, there's a whole discussion about how Michael on his own dubbed these for us, like, because this past Sunday, the newest one, Knapsack Kid and Girl or Sister Venturing Out, were not dubbed. Like they only dubbed the season, or I'm sorry, they only subbed the season. And that was it. And then they're like, oh, we're gonna sub this most recent movie. So, but Dreaming Girl is not subbed officially. So, and it's
not dubbed, is what you mean. Dreaming Girl's not dubbed; it's subbed.
Oh, right,
yeah.
But they dubbed the most recent movie.
They gave you an option for the last 2 movies to watch them dubbed Monday night if you didn't want to watch them subbed Sunday night. And I sat back and I said, well, I've watched this whole series in the first movie subbed. Why am I going to just jump into a dub session with? I want to hear the voices that I know, even though I don't speak the language, because I've been watching them for hours and hours.
And that's, even though I prefer dubbed, since I've watched all of it subbed, that's how I'm going to continue to watch it, because they're going to sound weird otherwise. But when I was watching this movie, because Michael dubbed it for me, and I was watching it, and I kept sending him memes. I was like, this movie. It was just treating my balls like a speed bag. Just
you're talking about Dreaming Girl. You're talking about Dreaming Girl, right?
Dreaming Girl, yeah. Because that movie.
To give everybody kind of a little bit of a setup for this, you've got Mai and you've got Sakta. They've gone through most of their high school stuff, and Mai is headed towards her last year at high school because she's older than Sakta by 1 year, and she's trying to get Sakta to plug into the fact through the end of this is still in the series. She's trying to get Sakta to understand that he wants to go to the same university that she's going to go to. She wants him to go to the same university. She's not trying to get away from him at all. She loves him. But in order for that to happen, he's got to brush up on his studies and get his grades up. And so the only way that she can really get him to study is by promising him to come over every now and then, and she will help him study, but she also does the added bonus of promising to wear the bunny girl costume. Sal, you still there? Okay, you're still there. You're just really good at being still. It's
a trauma response.
No, I think that's wonderful. I was like, that's impressive.
Dad can't see us if we don't move.
So like, here's a little bit from one of those later episodes that goes into the Dreaming Girl movie, where she is trying to get Sakta to prepare for his own leaving high school a year later, because she doesn't want him to end up not being at the university that she's at. So she's getting him to study by tutoring him in the bunny girl costume.
うんこ踏んだっていうのあれ嘘です。
なんだつまんない。
要するに構って欲しかったんですか。
殴るわよ。
顔はやめて。
He's so lovesick.
Yeah, he loves getting abused. And Futaba, the science girl, always chides him on that. She's always like, I thought your favorite thing was getting stepped on, having her shoe in your face, And she's not actually an abusive person. Like, she's not.
It's
she's
all
not,
playful.
Yeah, she's not Taiga from Toradora or anything like
Hmm.
that. She's not anything like that. So we get to the first movie, which came out in 2019, which is called Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl.
Mhm.
And this is where they finally address young little middle school Shoko versus the older Shoko he met on the beach many years ago, who's now back in his life. Because I don't want to give anything away about why the older Shoko is back. I'm not even going to tell you. But what's that?
It's so good.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But I'll just tell you that it has to do with Kaide's adolescent syndrome trauma. Here is a flashback sequence that shows what was going on with Kaide when she was being bullied before she lost her mind. In other words, before she had dissociative mental disorder. So here's just a little flashback taste.
クラスのリーダー格の女子から嫌われて SNS のコミュニティで悪口を書かれまくったんです。
兄ちゃん。
どうした？
It's kind of got this almost like Ghostbusters kind of thing going on, it's very like, paranormal kind of phenomena. And so at the start of Rascal Does Not Dream of Dreaming Girl, it's been established that there are now occasionally two Shokos of different ages. Obviously, I just showed you a clip of his kid sister Kaide. These two plots end up running in tandem for a while, where they're trying to resolve Kaide's story while also dealing with the whole Shoko thing at the same time. And they're spinning a few plates. And Shoko, the older Shoko, is helping Sakta with some of this emotional stress. Like she's suddenly appearing when he's at his lowest. In other words, literally like in the rain with an umbrella. And there she is. And he doesn't, even understand how she can be back Dreaming Girl begins with the first real romantic conflict because Shoko was his first crush / love. And it's established very quickly that Shoko liked Sakta as well. And Mai is understandably not pleased. Right.
Especially as the movie plays out for a few reasons. Now, it could be not a Mandela effect, or it could just be me misremembering the movie. But didn't she being Shoka, like save him? Because didn't he go to the beach to like die or something?
He went to the beach in it never says that he's about to walk into the ocean, but he's literally broken. Like he's right. And she gives him a reason to like pick himself up and keep going, and gives him hope, all that kind of stuff. And so he was always looking for her until finally he realized she wasn't at the high school that her uniform indicated. And so he just started hanging out with Kanemi and Futaba, and then he got established in his lane, and then the Mai thing happened, and now he's with this famous actress, and she likes him, and he's like, why would I ever not want to be with Mai?
He's punching above his weight class.
He very much is, and more people tell him that, like angrily. There, I think even Nodoka, her sister, says at one point, why does she like you? She's like, I don't understand this. And just to that point, before I forget, in the storyline where Nodoka and Mai have switched places, Nodoka's mother has Nodoka and Mai have
woman.
Yes, Nodoka and Mai have different mothers but the same father. And Nodoka, her mother was always trying to turn the screws on her to compete with her half sister that she barely knew. Like she just started throwing her into acting and performance and all this kind of stuff. So
performing's a word for it.
Right. So Nodoka has ended up in a J-pop band called Sweet Bullet. It's not exactly it's not exactly the most popular band, but you know, it has a following and all that kind of stuff, but it's hardly the career that Maya's had, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the midst of all this, they're having to live each other's lives while their bodies are switched or their appearances. And she's having to go to all of Mai's filming jobs while Mai is having to train with she's trying to learn all these dance numbers and stuff to go to these concerts as her sister. Like she's having to learn how to sing and learn how to do all these moves. And she's even basically taking Notika's body for a jog in order to get her stamina up and stuff. Like she's doing the work. And then there comes this point where Mai is good for Sakta because she's very mature. She's very pragmatic, and she doesn't. It takes a lot to rattle her. It takes a lot to rattle her, and so she's always thinking like 3 steps ahead. She's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Like she's very intelligent, and so there's this point that comes where everything comes to a head while their bodies are switched between her and Notika. And this little moment occurs, which is probably one of my favorite moments in the whole series.
できない方が悪いっていう、そういうかっこいいところが大嫌い。
どうして僕？
明日ファッション雑誌の撮影でしょ。跡が残ったらどうするのよ。
She's like, it's almost like she's saying, I'm not going to slap myself when I've got a job tomorrow, but I'm pissed. So I'm going to hit you because you're standing there and you can take it. And
God, that show.
Oh man, it's so good. Yeah. So now Mai is in the situation in the movie Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl, where it's no longer we're dealing with a middle school age Shoko that she can totally process and deal with. Now she's dealing with a second Shoko that could be the girl just instantly growing up and then shooting back down. They don't know. Or it could be 2 separate Shokos. They haven't figured it out yet. But she's now saying, well, Sakta needs my help. So I'm going to live here with Sakta. And Maya's like, no, like that's not going to happen. We're not doing that, you know, and because she's like, this is my boyfriend. This is not your boyfriend. And this is one of the first exchanges in Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl.
だったら私が居候しても何の問題もないですね。とにかくダメなものはダメです。それにもし何かあっても問題ありません。私、作田くんのこと好きですから。
Like, she's pretty brazen about it. Melinda hated her. Like, but I like Shoko a lot. When you see everything that her story entails, I like Shoko, but Melinda was ready to throw something at the screen. She was like, oh. So
well, for me, it wasn't like I didn't hate the character because I didn't like what I thought the character represented. Because I was like, oh, they're gonna go this route. I thought that they were gonna like sideline Mai, and I thought that was gonna be like the direction going forward. And I was like, I don't like this.
Right.
But I told people to just watch the first 3 episodes.
Yep.
You got to watch Dreaming Girl, but you kind of need to watch everything that leads up to Dreaming Girl.
Yep.
Just all 3 movies in the series combined is like 12 hours.
Yep.
Maybe. And people binge 7 seasons of The Office over and over again. You can fit in like a 2-day marathon of Rascal.
Right.
But
yeah, and Dreaming Girl was complicated because at the time that that I was trying to get into the series, and if you go right now, I know that in the chat people have said, well, Dreaming Girl and Sister Venturing Out are now finally on 9 Anime, which is kind of the shady sort of like place where people just throw up an anime that's not been officially distributed yet. I've watched things on it. Don't get me wrong. Like I watch it like everybody else. But when Sal and I were moving our way through this, the only things that were available were the series, and it was available in multiple places. It was on Netflix. It was on Crunchyroll. It seemed to be everywhere, but the movies were not available. And I knew that I wanted this series on physical media. So I turned around, and even though they were out of print, they were still able to be gotten. I got the Blu-ray set, the English Blu-ray set for Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. And then I turned around, and from the same seller, thank God, I picked up Rascal Does Not Dream of Dreaming Girl. And these were the only two, because these both came out in 2018 and 2019. These were this was it for American Rascal Does Not Dream distribution. So when Sal said I've gotten done with the series, I said, oh well, no problem. I've got a way for you to watch Dreaming Girl, and I'll make sure that you get a way to see that. And we were able to work that out pretty quickly. At the same time, though, the next movie, which was finally coming out last year in Japan, in June of 2023, Rascal Does Not Dream of a Sister Venturing Out, which is finishing Kaide's story. In other words, it's going to finally wrap up a lot of Kaide's story and trauma and everything like that, and really solve that. It gets the arc kind of goes through a dramatic beat in the series. It's the last dramatic beat in the series before we deal with Shoko's story and Dreaming Girl, but then they revisit it with Sister Venturing Out because there's some loose ends that have to get tied up. And they had only shown it once last year at like Anime Expo, and it was like a one-time screening. Well, I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't going to anime shows. Like I wasn't. So I heard that, and then I heard that Japan was releasing the Blu-ray. And I thought, well, what if they don't release it here? Like, because Dreaming Girl is not on any official streaming service. What if there's something about these movies where they don't release it ever? What am I going to do? So I went to the expense of pre-ordering Rascal Does Not Dream of a Sister Venturing Out on Japanese Blu-ray, knowing there would be no subtitles for it. But because I was insane for this show and insane for Hajime Kamoshida's writing, look, I fell in love with the show. What do you want from me? Right? Like I didn't know what I was doing. It's kind of like when you're just mad about a girl, or whatever, and you just go for it, and
you bring her back to the world of the living when no one else can see her, and you let her step on you and slap you in the face.
Exactly, right? I said, all right, I'm gonna get. I got the Blu-ray. It showed up from Japan, from Play Asia, and I sat down and I first watched it on its own because I have a multi-region Blu-ray player. I watched it on its own, no subtitles. I know like maybe 15 words of Japanese from watching all these anime shows. Like, so I but nothing significant. Like I was picking up on names. I knew the characters. I knew what they'd been through. I inferred. Yeah, right. Soka. Like it's that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, all right, well, I'm going to watch it. So I watched it all the way through. And then I thought, all right, now what? Well, I kind of really want to know what's going on. So I guess I'm going to read the light novel because I bought all the light novels. So there's a light novel. And that's when I realized, now, wait a second. I don't speak Japanese, but I'm not completely stupid. I thought maybe I could do something harebrained. I thought if I sit here on the left speaker with my smartphone on Google Translate, and I have the Blu-ray ripped into my computer in Premiere, and then I have Sister Venturing Out, the light novel, in this hand over here, then what I can do is I can find a middle ground between what's going on in the translation of the light novel and what Google Translate may or may not be telling me correctly or partially correctly. And I can suss this out. And I destroyed my neck for a period of about 6 weeks. I didn't realize I was going to do that, but I ended up what they call fan subbing the entire Sister Venturing Out movie. And I got that. I was determined to do that. And I even called it the RetroBlasting edit because I not to overtalk it, but the Rascal series has this really kick-ass intro sequence with this really cool song. Well, the movies don't have that. So I decided to drop that in, at the appropriate place and all that kind of stuff. And I subbed the film, and then I even dropped the intro and corrected some of the subtitle rips for Dreaming Girl, and I got that together, and I made sure that Sal had access to them so we could watch them. That was surreal because once you've subtitled something line by line, the act of going back to watch it almost is redundant because it's like
it so intimately at that point.
It's like I can't. But that was another layer of the anime experience that I didn't intend to go down, and there I was going down that path. So within just a few months of starting to watch this show, I had ended up importing Japanese media that had no subtitles. I'd bought light novels. I had fan subbed an entire movie. It's amazing how quickly it can get its hooks into you. And for everybody's edification, Jason Anderson was also aware that this was happening, and he apparently put together a little care package and sent me that arrived right before this stream yesterday. And he says, Konnichiwa. We're going to get to the movies here in a second, but he says, Konnichiwa, new weeb. Congratulations on crossing over from filthy Western entertainment to the beautifully animated and slightly culturally questionable world of anime. We would like to formally welcome you into the Weeb Society, a loose affiliation of anime fans of all walks of life who share an appreciation for all things Japanese, mostly their animated content, regardless of quality, and those who will argue with anyone and everyone about it. You are now permitted to wear our recognized uniform in public. Naruto headband, dirty cargo shorts, Crocs with socks, esoteric anime t-shirt with optional stains, and a suit vest to visibly represent the Weeb Society. Enclosed is your official Weeb Society welcome kit. As a new member, you are bound by the Weeb law to possess at least one anime statue, predominantly displayed on a shelf, typically above a desktop computer with excessive rainbow lighting. I do have a desktop computer with rainbow lighting. Crap.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah. One anime vinyl window decal for your vehicle, typically on the rear window or fuel door, so weebs might recognize you in traffic and judge your taste in anime. Once again, congratulations on taking the first step into being ostracized by society and looked down on by nearly every other fandom. Welcome to Weeb Society. And inside this box, he sent me my Sakurajima window stickers, and he sent me an actual my Sakurajima figurine.
That's amazing.
It was brand new in the box.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I can't believe it. I can believe he's super trig, so I can believe that he was keeping up with all this. But I mean, anyway. So yeah, so apparently right before this stream began, I was officially knighted into the first stage of the weeb hierarchy. So formally, so that's nice. Well, I'm now a Padawan learner.
Do I have stories about weebs?
So yeah, and the Slice of Anime says he says, ooh, that's a Taito brand. That's a really good prize figure. Yeah, this one's really nice. Like, unlike Hasbro, the foot pegs on the stand actually fit the figure. So like it can actually stand up. So
that's a novel concept.
Isn't it? And it even has perfect paintwork. Like, that's nice. So thank you, Jason. You're super kind. He also sent me this, which I just thought was hilarious. I don't even. Yeah. All right. So there.
Mondays.
Yeah. So Sal, we both got to see, as some anime fans do, because they either have a working knowledge of Japanese or they were fan subbing as well. But everything I read at the time, which is why I fan subbed Sister Venturing Out myself, was that there was only a fan sub that had been auto translated from a Spanish subtitled version. And so it was very janky. Like it was, and people were watching it. They were talking about it on Reddit. It's not good, but like it's good enough to get the gist. And I'm like, no, I want to get more than the gist. So Sal and I had the advantage of being able to see Sister Venturing Out before we learned that Sister Venturing Out and the next movie, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Rascal Does Not Dream of a Knapsack Kid, were going to be coming out as a one day subbed, one day dubbed double feature, Fathom events. Before we go into the screening of that, when we watched it, and no, I'm not asking you the question as in like, how'd you think my dub or sub was? I don't mean it like that. I mean, what did you think of the story of Sister Venturing Out? And you say whatever you want, like however you feel.
The watching it the second time, I liked it more, and it wasn't because of the dub or anything like that or the sub. It was because when I watched it the first time, I watched Dreaming Girl, and then Sister, and Dreaming Girl is such a powerhouse of a movie that Sister Venturing Out's kind of like, okay. Now, when you watch that one first and then watch Knapsack Kid, you're like, oh, I get it more. Like I couldn't invest myself in it because my balls were still reeling from Sako's story.
Right.
But it was starting off with that one. It was like, okay, I can actually like invest in what's going on. Like I get it now. Like Kaide's whole story. So for those who don't know, Sister Venturing Out, Kaide becomes Kaide again.
Right.
Like she wakes up as her original self. So she has like a memory gap of 2 years now. And she's struggling with all these people that have entered her life. And
her sister Nodoka,
and all of them have entered her life in that time, and they met a different Kaide.
Right.
And so she's struggling with like, you all love her, you don't like me. I'm not Kaide, but I'm. And it's this whole, that's her whole story in that movie.
Right.
But when you're watching it after Dreaming Girl, you're like, oh, shut the fuck up, Kaide. Like,
yeah, it's this is the poster for Dreaming Girl. This came out in 2019. And then we had the bad times. We had COVID and all that stuff. And then finally in 2023, we heard about Sister Venturing Out, which this is Kaide trying to finally reclaim her life after being a different person for several years. And now she has this memory gap because there were two Kaides. And there's this bit in that film, Sister Venturing Out, where she's trying to take the exam to get into high school, but she doesn't even know if she can be around other kids anymore. Right. She doesn't know how she's going to handle it, because even though the agoraphobic Kaide that was mentally dissociated is now reverted, the Kaide that's back is the one that had the trauma in the first place and the bullying and remembered all that stuff. So she's having her own similar problems, but she has a slightly different personality. And he's, Sakta's, the day of the exam, he's called over to figure out what happened, because she wasn't able to take the exam for the latter half of the day. And he goes into the nurse's office, and this happens.
前の私のママの方が。
あのな、楓。
お兄ちゃんだってもう一人の私の方が良かったんでしょ。
風さんはいいか。
Like it's a pretty dramatic bit, and when you're watching this story, I wish I could find like an analog for it. It's a falling action it's a falling action resolution for what she already went through with the adolescent syndrome. In other words, it's a weird little story in the middle of the whole Rascal Does Not Dream series, because they've already dealt with her adolescent syndrome thing for the most part. There's still vestiges of it. There's still leftovers, but by and large, now this is just about somebody trying to reassimilate into society and figuring out her place in the world. So it's
most of the other characters they seamlessly went back to normal. Like no one noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Kaede, on the other hand, didn't have that luxury.
Right. So. Yeah. So we go through that, and then I, at the time, obviously I was subbing the film as well, but I ended up appreciating the fact that they didn't just wrap everything up so neatly, because that wouldn't have been realistic. You know, they didn't just have her arc in the series and then say, well, we're done with that. You know, like they went back and they had to do some necessary extra character work, which I appreciated. I really did, because you know, Kaide is this important character. Here's Kaide. She's an important character in the show, and after they do that, they said, well, we're immediately moving on at the end of the year to Rascal Does Not Dream of a Knapsack Kid, which is teased at the end of Sister Venturing Out.
Right.
And what I love about this series more than anything is that even when you have your post credits, like Marvel post credit scenes in these films, and some episodes have them, you think you know what's about to happen, and then you actually see the movie, and it doesn't do anything like you thought it was going to do. They really don't. And it's not Rian Johnson's subversion of expectations. It's just you can't predict what the writers have in their heads for what they're going to do. So as an example here, Sakta is waiting for Mai to she's in her graduation ceremony at the high school. He's down at the beach. They're going to walk home together for the last time as high school students. And while he's down there, he sees this little girl with a backpack on watching the ocean. And he realizes it's like an elementary school age Mai. And he's like, what? Which is this Diary of a Knapsack Kid. This was the third film. It came out around November, December in Japan. And that's all you get at the end of Sister Venturing Out, is him being like, what, Biscuit? Like, what happened to Mai? And what I like about the way Kamoshida writes this series is that then we got to see Knapsack Kid this past Sunday at the screening. Nothing happened to Mai. Everything's happening to Sakta. Like, he doesn't, he's having to start putting together that, oh, I'm the one that's now in the middle of a adolescent syndrome situation. I'm no longer just being affected by everyone else's adolescent syndrome.
Right.
Now I'm in one myself. And I've got to figure this out. And it ropes in all of these things that you don't see coming. But when you step back, you go, oh, that's actually, it's really thorough character development concerns on Kamoshida's part, because what Kamoshida's doing is and again, I don't want to overtalk it, but with Knapsack Kid, we're still getting a little bit of the final Frodo crawling up Mount Doom of Kaide's story, but it's also roping in, well, Sakta was affected by all this too, and he hasn't dealt with all this that went down, and he's got to face his mother, who we've really not gotten to know because she's been hospitalized the whole time. So it's going to deal with that too. And Mai is going to be there, you know, to support him in Futaba and all these people. So I was glad, because when I first saw the teaser at the end of Venturing Out, I thought, oh man, I said, this might be just a Groundhog Day repeat, where it's just, okay, it's like Shoko, she's gotten younger again, and or maybe it's two of them, you know, like, well, which is also like Shoko, and it didn't do that at all.
Where she had like the split personality extra. Hers was, I think, the weirdest one. Yes,
but really interesting. I thought it was really interesting. So yeah, that's where we are with the series. And I somebody was saying here that Slice of Anime says this is a pretty interesting comment. The movie hit hard while not being really important to the overall plot. Seeing her go through that was basically a literal imposter syndrome. Sister Venturing Out really hit hard. Yeah, and Cute Fluff says, I can relate with her. Most people don't like me, but finally okay with that because I like me. It's good wisdom. Good wisdom. So yeah, we're now waiting on the next cycle to begin, which they said at the end of this movie, there's more coming. Like,
right, which was like, huh?
Yeah, and is it a series or is it another movie? I'm not sure.
Right. Well, that was the thing, because it was, for all intents and purposes, we were kind of led to believe, like, hey, this is going to be it. Like, it's over. Like, this is going to tie up everything, and it'll be done.
Right.
And
Even though we knew the light novels kept going, animes end all the time. Haganai,
Right.
we don't know.
Haganai.
Oh, we're gonna have to go through some therapy on that one sometime. Talk about Haganai.
But we're just watching along, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, season 2."
What? Going back. It sounds like it's going back to series, which would be great. Like that would be great.
Well, I'm assuming series because it said college arc.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, that implies more than one entry.
Yeah.
But there was, speaking of arcs and entries and all that, Sister Venturing Out. I think the runtime's a little too long. Because it's a double feature as we watched it.
Right.
And Knapsack Kid, to me, I wouldn't say it was the weakest of the three, because I mean it kind of was to me. Only because I was expecting something else.
Sure.
And it seemed like there were three plots, just like micro plots. It's like this needs a little, like 15 minutes more. Where Sister Venturing Out, so part of the whole plot for the people that are playing along at home is she's trying to go to school, wants to go back to public school, or I guess it's a private school, but doesn't want to be at home anymore. And she wants to go to school with her brother. Well, he goes to a very prestigious high school, and it's hard to get in, and she's not been going to school for 2 years, and it's all very convoluted. And they're trying to get her to like go a different route that's better for her. And so they go to this concert to watch my little sister's band Sweet Bullet sing, which thank you for not going through the trouble to dub those lyrics, because there's a reason why they play like malls and
there was no way. I tried it, and all Google Translate could pick up on was the word sparkle. And then
that was pretty much the word every single time.
Yeah, and the book just didn't even address it. The book was just like, they're singing, and that's it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't think we really need the lyrics in this song. They're singing. That's,
The lyrics ended up like the equivalent of being like "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," essentially. Sorry, brain fart.
No, you're fine.
They end up having a conversation. He's like, "Hey, like she goes to this school, this girl singing that you admire," and they have this like really kind of heart to heart, and like it's really nice. That's where the movie could have ended, but it goes on for another like 15 or 20 minutes. You're like, okay, and nothing of substance happens after that.
Right.
And it's like you and I had talked about it some time ago. It was like the Return of the King. It just kept ending.
Yep.
And you're like, this movie's not. It's done.
Right. Right.
And I felt like The Simpsons, like, stop, he's already dead. Like,
yeah, it's it really feels like Kamoshida knew he had to wrap a few things up. And really this movie was, we've got to get Sakta to deal with all of the trauma that he went through and the stress that his parents ended up having to put on him, while he was also dealing with some major stuff that we won't reveal that's dealt with in Dreaming Girl. Like, so that was on top of just the everyday stuff with Kaide that he was dealing with. And now it's like, all right, we've got to finish telling Kaide's story, and then we've got to finish telling Sakta's story in relation to him and his parents, and get that resolved. And so I don't envy Kamoshida the task of having to do that before they go off to college, but I'm glad that he didn't just ignore it. Like I feel like in many ways, I almost feel like, I know this is going to sound crazy, in a backwards way. Remember how we've all looked back and said, well, Phantom Menace had some rather dry, slow bits in it. But if we didn't have them, the other two prequels might have been really hard to plug into. In other words, and I feel like in reverse, that's what happened, where we got the more action-packed prequels, or we got the more action-packed stories first, but there was still this business that had to be dealt with to give all of it gravity. And so this bit was kind of its, I don't want to say it's Phantom Menace moment, because there's no Jar Jar Binks. I don't mean it's like that, but it's what role it plays in the narrative is, it's a kind of exposition resolution kind of thing. Yeah. So that's me getting heady tonight. That's as close as I'll get. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, and I'm hoping that these shows come out. There's been a little bit of a controversy late last year, because as you heard Sal mention earlier, these two movies that came out this past Sunday, if you went and saw them on Monday, you saw them dubbed. And that's the first time any of these
anything from the series has been dubbed.
Yeah, anything Rascal has been dubbed. Well, late last year, Crunchyroll had an exclusive re-release box set from Aniplex that was going to combine the series and Dreaming Girl into one set, because these two sets right here, the ones that I was referring to before, these two were out of print. So they were going to re-release all of them in one box with a new cover and everything like that. Well, as part of the big selling point that got people intrigued, because Aniplex, unfortunately, is known for very overpriced Blu-ray sets. I do not know why, but they are. They were already going to charge like $127 for this set of stuff that they'd already put out before. But as part of the reason that a lot of people were thinking, well, it might be worth it if you really love Rascal, is because it said it was going to have an English dub for the first time, along with the Japanese. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I pre-ordered it on Crunchyroll because it was a Crunchyroll exclusive. And we got about 2 weeks out from that release, and somebody picked up on the fact that over on the Aniplex site, the description for the disc no longer had the English dub as part of the features on the thing. Well, I said, "Oh, that's not good." So I turned around and I contacted Crunchyroll and got my order canceled, because I've already got what they're literally putting back out. I've got the original releases. So then something else weirdly happened. The thing allegedly came out, but when it did, that's when everybody realized, who wasn't paying attention to the internet, that suddenly this disc I had in my hands was not English dubbed. It had no dub on it. So Aniplex had to put out a statement on their Twitter feed or Instagram or something that said, it had this formal statement. And now that box set, which wasn't supposed to be highly limited, it wasn't supposed to be like, it's suddenly gone. Like you can find people trying to sell it, but it's always the stock photography. It's never like on their show. You can find people trying to sell this thing for like $250, $300. And it's crazy because it's a brand new set allegedly, but it's not anywhere anymore. And so a lot of people in the community have speculated, well, it's because they probably kiboshed further pressings of it to correct the issue, because they're now dubbing these movies, and they're probably going to work their way back and dub the rest of it. So they probably realized this is a dumb double dip. Let's just kill this one now. Yeah.
Which it'll be interesting, because I'm tempted to watch it dubbed purely because they started at the end and they're going to work their way backwards. So normally it's like you watch a show and then you watch the season, next season, and you can hear how the voice actors, like, really, the characters take on their life, all that kind of stuff. Right. So it's like, oh, you're going to hear them at the beginning like that, and they're going to gradually get worse. So, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I might watch it just for that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've watched. There's certain shows that I've watched both dubbed and subbed just to see how the dynamics change. Like when I was watching, Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out, I watched it subbed first, but I went back and watched it dubbed as well. And while it does change a little bit of the tone and delivery, it doesn't change it to any degree where it betrays the show. It's just because it's just voices in another language. But some of these shows, like as people have been saying in the chat, you can find some lousy dubs, like where it's just, God, it sounds like these people had to be, horsewhipped to come into the recording.
Stories enter the chat.
Well, Ghost Stories is,
it's bad on purpose.
It's bad on purpose, yeah. One of the funniest things I think I've ever seen.
Oh my God.
My whole life.
I still can't get over the little brother all the time. And the sister is looking at him going, it's so good.
It is. That one is one of those that you hold up to history where you're like, this one is deliberately, bad. They did it on purpose. They got the show for a song because they were doing another show, and they got it as a writer. They're like, if you're going to license this show for distribution, we'll happily give you this one. The only caveat is just don't change the character names, but you can do anything else, which is kind of a weird caveat. It's like, wait,
we'll pay you to take this one.
Right. We'll pay you to take it. Like, really? Like that's your only caveat? That's weird, And then they just turned it into this thing that they would never get away with today, even though that was like in the 2000s. Maybe it was even as late as 2010 they did that. But we're 14 years from that, and now it's like that wouldn't be possible anymore. And I'm like, well, that's a shame because it's legitimately hilarious. Like
have you accepted Lord Jesus as your Lord and Savior? I'm Jewish.
Right. Or that where the kid who's the lead in the play gets killed or something, and the other kid who wants his part is like, everybody knew he got that part on the casting couch anyway.
Yeah.
And you're just like, holy crap,
that one, because it's a little kids play,
right? Yeah, because they're like middle school kids, like they're not,
there's some heat on the dialogue in that show.
Yes, like it's one of those shows where it's so funny to me, and it hits my sense of humor, that irreverent, just look, let's just lighten up here and have a good time. That I'm so glad I bought it on Blu-ray, because you never know how long these shows are going to be in circulation, and this one still is with that dub. And I figured that show would have been pulled and canceled by now, just but even Crunchyroll has that dub available to watch, which is amazing. Like I couldn't believe it. But yeah, this show, I will be interested to see how its dub plays out. If it ever is available as a dub, I will watch it again dubbed, just to see how it, because I love the show so much. And I would like to give them their just due. I did watch the dubbed previews for the two movies that came out on YouTube. I was weirded out, but I told myself, look, don't start the dub there. Wait and see if they can backfill the whole thing and start fresh from the beginning, because that's always going to be the better way to work into those dubs. So, yep. So, Sal, question for you: what are you currently watching, anime wise, and what's in your future list?
So, currently, I think I'm caught up. I think with Delicious in Dungeon, which has been surprisingly good. It's a slow burn, but the last 2-ish episodes have been exceptionally good.
Right.
It's very kind of like, oh, they kill a monster and they eat it. Next episode, they kill a monster and they eat it. And it's like, okay, but it picks up steam. Unwanted Undead Adventurer is another one that I'm watching, which is
right.
I think it's being simulcast right now, but it's pretty good. It's Rising of the Shield Hero, solo leveling, delicious. It's a D&D derivative type show.
Right.
But I really like it.
Yeah. I've been watching Delicious in Dungeon too. It's really good. It's really funny. Dude, we're saying Ghost Stories with its dub is the best anime ever. Not Top Goon. Like, we're not. It was a bad anime that was resurrected by a satirical dub. That's what we're saying.
Mhm.
Like, it went from terrible or unmemorable or forgettable to unforgettable. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. Continue.
And what else? I watched Common No Maid Guy,
Uh-huh.
I think, which was only 12 episodes and it was canceled. I guess it was so unpopular they just stopped doing it, but it's so
Right.
funny.
So it's like Hagenai in that regard. It's
Yeah.
really funny, but it went off the rails, and so they canceled it.
Yeah. They canceled it without any resolution too, because it's like the whole premise is like, oh, this girl turns 18 in like 6 months, and when she turns 18, she's old enough to inherit her grandfather's estate and all this money and all that kind of stuff. And so there's like this super OP, like super ripped buff dude in a maid costume, and he wears a mask and he has to like protect her, like that's his whole thing. But he can do literally anything.
Right.
And like there's always some like, it's a secret made man power number whatever. I don't know, produce sonic waves with my teeth to get out of these ropes and stuff. It's always something, but it's so over the top that it's funny.
Slice of anime. I haven't checked out Dangers in My Heart, but I'll look it up after the show. We're open to a lot here. So I'm sorry, keep talking, Sal.
But yeah, it got canceled after like 12 episodes or something like that. Like it was so unpopular that
Right.
they even stopped making the anime. So
Yeah, that was what was weird about Hagenai, is that they stopped the anime because enough people didn't like where the light novel and or manga or whatever it was ended up. But that light novel kept going to finish out the series, or manga, whatever it was. I can't remember which one it was, but that source material kept going. Finished everything out. But you had a precipitous drop off, I think, in sales after a certain point, and the anime was like too orthodox to the source material. I wish the anime had just gone in its own direction midway through season 2.
Yeah, so. But I cut myself off. But in addition to that, with the Common No Maid Guy,
right?
They stopped translating the mangas and everything.
Oh,
so
right.
People were like, oh, like even like because they translated enough of the manga you could keep going after the show was over.
Yep.
But then they just stopped that and they're like, well, guess we're done.
See, that's what's insane about Hagenai, is that they didn't stop the translations of the manga, but the print runs got lower. And so like you can go on eBay right now from like volume 10 to the end. If you have those in the collection, the whole collection is going to cost you over $1,000 to get all the manga. And I'm like, I don't want to read
get let down. I'll just go to college again.
Yeah, right. Like I wasn't interested in reading it anyway. I was just kind of researching it because I eventually want to do a video about the love-hate relationship with Hagenai. But yeah, it can be really disappointing when a show just goes sideways and doesn't recover. Anything else you're watching or going to watch?
Whatever really strikes my fancy.
Right.
I've watched so much anime over the last like year and a half, 2 years that I forget things that I've watched.
Right.
And I just binge straight through them. And then I'm like, well, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's why like a lot of the times I don't bother learning names and things anymore.
Right.
Like, yep, I'm gonna binge this, then it's gonna be over.
Right.
So
I'm about to finally crack open the Blu-ray complete series of Pat Labor and start watching that. And in the background, some of the ones that I've watched, bought them straight to Blu-ray on recommendations. Some of them were great, some of them weren't. Amagami SS. I don't know why people think that's like one of the best slice of life. That show's creepy as hell, and I'm appalled, and I'm just going to wait for my Blu-ray to go out of print and then sell it at a premium, because that show was a real disappointment. The other ones that I'm currently like burning through. One of them I actually really liked, even though I would never hold it up to an Uzaki-chan or like in this case, it's not the same thing, but a Rascal. I wouldn't hold it up to a Rascal, but I liked it well enough. Is I'm going to get the title transposed, but it's Yamada-kun at level 999 or something like that. It's a romantic comedy, and it's about this girl who literally has she joins like a World of Warcraft game and has been playing it with her boyfriend to stay closer with him, and then he cheats on her and breaks up with her because he met someone in the game he's now with. But there's this like famous reclusive gamer guy who like has all the high scores and he set records and stuff, and she ends up running into him at this big outdoor event for like it's a promotional event for this Warcraft style game, but she's going there all dolled up to try and like make the boyfriend jealous or feel bad, that he left her. But she ends up running into him, and it becomes this thing. And I actually enjoyed that show a lot. I hope it gets a second season because that show was really decent. I was like, it's funny and it's good and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I watched Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. That's one of my favorite shows ever now.
It's really I really want another season of that.
I know. I'm hoping that they will, because the even though some people were mad that at the end of the second season there wasn't this Lois and Clark moment or whatever, it was still a very popular second season. So I'm hoping that there'll be another one. I've watched a lot of like throwaway shows that didn't really do much for me. Like I watched Hokkaido Gals Are Super Adorable. Like it's not bad, but it's just like it's got all the cliches in it that I've seen 100 times. I'm just kind of like, all right, fine. There was one. What was the one I watched? Oh, it was called. I'm gonna butcher the title, but it was the one where the guy is playing the Warcraft game. There's a lot of ones like that where kids are playing these games, these RPGs, and he finds out that there's a girl in the game who's literally a girl at his school. She's actually a girl. She's not a guy playing a girl. And she's actually using like her real name in the game because he finally sees her at school. And she actually has her character look like her in the game. He's like, that's not smart. Why would you do that? All that stuff. And she's like, she thinks that because she's married to him in the game, she can't separate the game from real life. And so that was actually fun to watch. I wouldn't say it was like anything I'd want to like have on physical media or anything, but and then there's been some other ones like Melinda and I were watching My Happy Marriage, which was really good. And Melinda's been watching a few shows herself, but the ones that I've really been enjoying on a legitimate level, like not to say that the ones I just mentioned aren't good and worth watching,
right?
But the ones that I would hold up in their genres to a Rascal or an Uzaki-chan in their respective genres. Frieren Journey's End, amazing show. If you haven't watched Frieren, you got to watch Frieren.
I've seen the title card for that, but based on the subtitle, I didn't know if it was like, oh, is this like a sequel series? Is this a spinoff? Like, you never know when they've got like a name colon, and then you're like, okay. So I was trying to figure that out before I watched that, but it looks up my alley. So.
Let's see. Jason says he's been watching a whole lot of isekai anime, or there's a whole lot of isekai anime out there. Yeah. And then Wilson says he's excited for the next season of Spy X Family.
I haven't seen any of it.
And then Slice of Anime says some people don't recommend a lot, but I'll recommend Non Biori, Girls Last Tour, Sound Euphonium, Baki the Rock, and Review Starlight. Okay. Thank you for that.
One I think you might like, which I don't know if you've started yet or not, is Dr. Stone.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's a very ancient archaeology alternative kind of show that it gets a little woo-woo, and you have to really they take some liberties,
right?
But I like it,
right? Smith the Crow, I'm talking real fast in these live streams because of the chat and stuff, so try and cut me a little slack on that.
Yeah, like belly aching about something else too.
Really? Is he one of those people?
probably.
Oh,
Name
dude,
I don't recognize.
Smith, seriously, calm the hell down, dude. Like, really, like, we're all just talking here. Like, don't be that guy. Come on, adjust yourself. I will check out Kaiju number 8. Thank you, Dank Meme. I will do that. Now, Melinda, the other one that I really recommend that I've really been enjoying as equal to Freerun. Freerun is a great one if you love Lord of the Rings, because the whole idea behind Freerun is, what if a Lord of the Rings D&D style world, the story started the day they came back from defeating the big bad.
Right, and that's why I thought it was a sequel series. I was like, oh, I gotta watch that first.
Right, and there is no first. It literally starts there, and it's really, really good. The other one that I really, really like right now is Apothecary Diaries. Apothecary Diaries, and I'm so glad that it's been announced that it got a second season. They've just finished the first season, but it's getting a second. I can't imagine Freerun won't, because Freerun's been so popular this past year. And then the one that I'm so happy is restarting with a third season on April 4th. I like looking for shows that have that twist premise. You know, like where it's like, for example with Isekai, there's so many of those shows out there, but the one where it's like, he didn't show up looking like himself, and he also didn't necessarily show up looking like the Ultimate Warrior, and the title was That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Like, because I played a lot of Dragon Quest and stuff, I'm like, so I've watched and bought all the physical media for that. I love that show, and now it's getting a third season, so I'm really excited about that one. But yeah, Jason Anderson's ancient anime recommendations include Gunsmith Cats, seen it. Bubblegum Crisis, seen the first episode. Crusher Joe, heard of it. Area 88, haven't heard of it. OG Dirty Pair, have it on my list and have seen like the first 3 or 4 episodes. Yep. Impossible Pie. Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out is a comedy. Haganai is a comedy. Oh, yeah. Uzaki-chan is like, yeah. There are a lot of comedy animes that are truly funny. There are other ones that are comedies that are not funny, but a lot of them are the ones we mentioned. We find funny. So like
I maintain High School DxD is hysterical.
High School DxD is hysterical. Probably don't want to watch that one in mixed company though, because you don't know what people can stomach. But
that's not when you watch in public.
Yeah, public is what I mean. Sorry, not mixed company, but public. As far as like straight up comedies, the ones that I've enjoyed so far, Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. What was the other one we just? Oh, even though Haganai ends prematurely badly at the end of season 2, the comedy in the first 2 seasons is gold. I bought that on physical media just to have those and that cost me because those were out of print.
One of my favorite lines of dialogue in anything comes from that show, and I don't remember. It's the blonde chick. She's in an argument with someone, and she says, "Don't you know who I think I am?" It was perfect.
Oh man, Wilson says, "I'm surprised no one mentioned Konosuba." I feel like I have that on my watch list, but Konosuba. No, I've seen this in the results for the premise is, after a traffic accident, Kasuma Sato's disappointingly brief life was supposed to be over, but he wakes up to see a beautiful girl before him. She claims to be a goddess, Aqua, and asks if he would like to go to another world and bring only one thing with him. Kazuma decides to bring the goddess herself, and they are transported to a fantasy world filled with... Okay, so it's like a very like by the numbers isekai show. Okay, so Rent a Girlfriend. I have watched a lot of videos about this show, and it is considered repugnant. Like this show is because the main character is awful. Like, he's a horrible human being. So, like, I appreciate that you're calling it a guilty pleasure, emphasis on guilty slice of anime, but this would almost be, from what I've heard about this show, what you've just said is tantamount to saying I liked that show where they stepped on kittens' heads. Like, it's just cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
So Konosuba is a parody of isekai. Okay, well, I'll check that out then. I'll check that out for sure. Thank you for letting me know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's see. One more set of recommendations from Arjun Odekirk. Says, hey, Michael, you should also check out Anime Scores. Oh, Score. Some of my favorite composers are Kevin Penkin, Yuki Hayashi, Hiroyuki Sawano, Kenichiro Suhiro, and Tatsuya Kato. Okay. Thank you. Cute Fluff, it was the only horrible parallel I could come up with because my brain is broken. But remember, yeah, it's just me. I don't find that funny at all. That was my whole point.
Right.
All right. Well, Sal, any parting thoughts on Rascal Does Not Dream before we wrap this up and wait for the next arc?
Probably 2 years from now. I said it earlier in the stream, but to reiterate, it's on. It might still be on Netflix. I know it's on Crunchyroll.
Right.
Just if nothing else, you will not be disappointed with the first 3 episodes. If nothing else, the whole all of it's good.
Right.
But if you're only going to watch, like, if you're going to give it a try, see if you like it, just the first 3. I'm willing to bet it's enough to get you to watch the rest of it. But especially to get to Dreaming Girl, that movie. Like, so you'll watch the first 3 episodes, you're like, oh, this is heavy, this is really good. It gets a little lighter, and then Dreaming Girl happens. You're like, oh, and that's what the show's about.
Right.
So,
Which gives me hope for the college arc. It really does, because I have a feeling.
So.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because they've been the high school gimmick of most anime, but now they'll be in college, and I'm like, well, they call it the college arc, but there's a year gap between her and Suka, so it's like, are they gonna wait the year? Are they gonna do a time jump, or are they only gonna follow Mai into college?
Yep.
So
yeah, 100%. I'm looking forward to it. I'm here for it. And apparently, because Jason has christened me officially with my first anime figure, I'm really here for it. For the rest of the run. I will leave you all with this final clip before we exit. This is typical Sakta when Futaba does not want him to accidentally give away to Kunimi that she has a crush on him. And his response to this is just one of my favorite Sakta lines ever.
悪い、邪魔した。
佐川はバカかバカなのか。私に変な気を使うな。国見に気づかれる。
なんか取り込み中みたいだから、また今度な、サクタ。相変わらずイケメンなやつだな。
Oh my god, my friend is so handsome. Oh my god. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining Sal and I tonight on this, and we will see you on the next video. Melinda and Conrad have Dreamland this Saturday. They've been working hard on it. It should be pretty funny. And yeah, so everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a good night, and we will see you soon. So let me see, where am I? Crap, where'd I go? There it is. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the outro because I wasn't prepared. So anticlimactic outro. Everybody have a great night. Bye.
Bye.